going on, Blossoms back, and welcome back to another episode of Top Drives. Today we're going to be reviewing the Italian 90s carbon fiber. Yesterday I uploaded a video where we reviewed the 60s to 80s. Today we're going to review the 90s because both of these packs are going to go hand in hand in helping and assisting you in the time trials challenge going on in Top Drives right now. Obviously, there's 4 different sectors from rare all the way to epic, and we're seeing a theme between all these events, all these sectors. You're going to need 60s to 90s Italian cars. So yesterday I reviewed the 60s to 80s. I gave you my thoughts. If you haven't checked it out, well, what are you doing? Go check it out. But today we'll be also covering the 90s Italian pack. Both of these packs are out in the store. Now, I'll be judging these cars in a general sense, in an open water kind of vibe, because I want to judge these cars on how well they'll do in multiplayer, how useful they are in multiplayer, in the Yellowbird, in single player, in clubs. Because if I was going to be judging these cars on base just off how useful they're going to be in the time trials challenge, I would say all of them are going to be useful, to be completely honest. The challenge isn't too hard. At least I finished 3 out of the 4 sectors. As I'm recording this video, the 4th sector isn't unlocked for at least another 8.5 hours. But what I've noticed is that for this challenge, it seems that as long as you have the cars and as long as they have more than like 2 fuses in them, you should be fine. So therefore, if I was judging all these cars in just a challenge sense, all of them would be useful, but I don't want to do that. That would be boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be judging all these cars in the general sense, open water, how useful they're going to be outside of the challenge in the general game. So much like yesterday's video, the tiers are going to stay the same. Maserati, which means breathtaking. I'm actually learning Italian based off this video. Buona, good. Così means so-so or average. Cattivo means nasty, and picante spazzatura. I just love saying that. Picante spazzatura. It means hot garbage. Obviously, all of this Italian, I just took it off Google Translate. I can't speak Italian whatsoever, so there's probably a better way to say so-so, but according to Google Translate, così, so-so. But let's get into it. We're going to start with the Di Tommaso Guara, which I think is buona. It's actually a really good car. I'm not going to repeat myself too much. That's going to be Mozzafiato. I've already talked about both the Guaras in Call of the Wild, and I kind of ranked them in the same places. So, you know, my stands for these cars haven't changed. The Guara is basically a slightly cheaper version of the Fiat 030 without the MRA, but it has amazing base stats, great twisty car, and the Guara, I guess the silver Guara, is just a little worse version of the yellow one, but they're still absolutely fantastic cars. Now, next up is the Di Tommaso Pantera SI. I'm gonna give that così, you know, so-so. I would say it's either così, like high così, or low buona, like low good, because honestly, if you put it in this tier, I wouldn't mind that either, because the handling is good. The 0 to 60 is pretty weak, and it is probably going to lose to cars like the Lotus 135 and of course the Lotus 340R. That being said though, when it comes to that Italian niche, it is a pretty good car. The RQ is reasonable for its stats, but you know, usually when it comes to Italian twisties, I will try and make the space to use a yellow Guara or a Fiat 030. But if that was a situation where I really couldn't use any of them, the Di Tommaso Pantera SI or C is incredibly good as well. It's just that it's just more niche than the others, and I can't rank it as high as the others. Next up is the Lancia Delta Integrale Evolution. That is cattivo, unfortunately. It's you know, once again, I feel like there are 2 things. If there's like a bunch of Integrales, a bunch of Mulsans, or like a bunch of what else, like maybe Chargers, I feel like you want the best and the worst. That's how Top Drives is kind of evolving to be. You want the best version because it's the best version, and you want the worst version because nobody collects the worst version, and therefore Hutch would make events revolved around the worst version. So in yesterday's video, we covered the worst version. That's the black Delta, and we have the best version here, which is the yellow Delta, which I'm gonna put under good. And then you have the ones in the middle, you know, the ones like this one and the S4, which are kind of like, they're not the worst, they're not the best, and they don't really have their day to shine. To be completely honest, this Delta right here isn't the worst of cars, right? It handles well, it has medium ground clearance, it has 4-wheel drive. The problem is, when was the last time you actually saw this car being useful in anything? Because to be completely honest with you, I actually forgot that Lancia even existed. I knew that there was the yellow yellow one, the black one, and the S4. And I forget that this one even existed. So, you know, that kind of speaks for itself. And in my opinion, I'm going to put it under cattivo, which is nasty. Next up is the Maserati 3200 GT Assetto Corsa. I'm going to put that under cosi cosi. I have this maxed out, and surprisingly, I have used it a surprisingly amount of times. What makes it so special is just that it has a very low 0 to 60, and combined with that low 0 to 60, it has competent handling. It's not a great twisty car, to be completely honest. It hits 90 handling, so it's not like it has amazing handling, but it does have a very impressive 0 to 60. When you compare it to the Di Tommaso Pantera, there is a, what is that, 0.6 second difference for 1 RQ. So for 1 RQ more, you're getting a car with 0.6 seconds lower, 0.6 seconds less, that's faster to 60, if that makes any sense. And obviously you are getting 3 points less in handling, but you're still getting a car that is capable of hitting 90, which is, you know, I would say okay for its niche. At the end of the day, the Maserati 3200 isn't a twisty car. It's not even a fast car. It's a hybrid, but it's a pretty decent hybrid, you know? And I think you guys know what I mean by that now, because I made that whole video explaining what I meant and how I categorize my car, so that's cool. Next up is the Maserati Ghibli Cup, and that's gonna be nasty, man. That's cattivo. The only reason why it's not picante, spazzatura, hot garbage is because the Shamal exists. The Shamal is just a slightly worse version, has a worse 0 to 60, doesn't handle very well at the same top speed, similar MRA, so, you know, because of that, just because the Ghibli Cup is better in every way, and they are the same RQ, I would put the Ghibli Cup above the Shamal, but that isn't saying much because at the end of the day, the Ghibli Cup is still a really horrible car. It doesn't handle, like 79 handling isn't good, so 78 on the Shamal is just even worse, right? So therefore, the Ghibli Cup is getting nasty or cattivo, and the Shamal is getting picante spazzatura. Now, next up is the Maserati Quattroporte. I'm going to put it under Buona, which is actually good. Now, the thing with the Quattroporte is when it comes to standard tire cars in top drives, in general, like when you just do ultra rare standard, nothing else, no other filters, just ultra rare standard, the Quattroporte is cattivo. But the thing is, when you put Italian cars into account, suddenly the stocks just rise up. It's like mozzafiato. So just to balance it out, I'll put it in Buona. It could be cosi cosi. What makes the Quattroporte so special is that it's the only like standard tire Italian car. Like there are a couple super rares and there are a couple rares, but like it's the only standard tire ultra rare Italian car. And there's no epic standard tire Italian. There's no legendary standard tire Italian. So that is the best standard tire Italian car in the entire game. So let's say there was like Italian ×5 in clubs and it was like Storm Chaser or Rising Storm or something like that. That is the best car to use. So because of that, because it's the best car in its niche, I gotta give it Buona. So let's move to the epics. Now I have to say, in a general sense, a lot of these Lamborghinis, hot garbage. But let's see what I'm gonna think about them. The first one I'm gonna do is the Pagani's on the C12, because this is the easiest one to judge. So I'm gonna put it under Mozzafiato. Fantastic car, handles really well, it's pretty lightweight, and has 100 MRA, high top speed as well, so it's a really good epic. I have 2 of those in my garage, and unfortunately I don't think I can finish the final part. I can't finish the challenge because I don't own any of the Diablos, because any Diablo that I unpack, I immediately get rid of. These are some of the first cars that I always fuse whenever there's a tri-series going on and I know that I need epics to cut to feed into my legends. It's always the Italians that get cut first. It's either the Italians or like the Germans if they're BMWs, you know. But let's look at the list. So the Diablo, right? Picante. I have to. It is genuinely hot garbage. There isn't really many situations where I can use it. Back in the day when Italian Renaissance just released, there was this argument that you could make that some of these Diablos had MRA, but then some of them, first of all, got nerfed, and then secondly, with European Revolution, with the introduction of the spikers, those cars are just so much better, because there are a bunch of spikers which are low RQ epics that have better MRA and similar 0 to 60s that are better than these Diablos. And then now I know what you're thinking, well, Blossom, what if it's just an Italian sense? Well, in an Italian sense, if you wanted, you know, a car in this time period which had a lot of, you know, MRA, which is a car that is reliable for the drags, it's the Pagani. The thing is, right, when it comes to drags, the Pagani is the top dog, and you want to keep that. Like, if you have the Pagani, you don't need the rest of the Lambos. That's why I have 2 of the Paganis, but nothing else. Which I guess is there's a bit of irony in that, because now I can't get the Chevrolet. But, you know, when it comes to a general sense, outside of the challenge, the Pagani is really all you need in this category for the drags. Next up is going to be the Lamborghini Diablo Se. We're just going to move up the pecking order here. So this one I'm going to go Cattivo. I'm going to give the Diablo SV Cattivo as well. They're both really bad cars. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't go out of the way calling them hot garbage per se, but they are pretty nasty. Next up is the Lamborghini Diablo Vt Roadster. That is picante spazzatura. If you remember my top 3 best RQs and top 3 worst RQs, well, top 3 best cars and top 3 worst cars per RQ, the Lamborghini Diablo Vt Roadster was one of the worst RQ76s, and I think I've already explained it. It has ultra rare stats. 82 handling, 4.30 to 60. That is incredibly sad. I mean, when you compare it to just the Guara is 86 to the Lamborghini's 82, 4.5 to 43, and the RQ difference is like what, 16? That is bonkers, bro. I get that it has decent MRA, I get that, and I get that it has top speed, but like at the end of the day, you're gonna go with the Pagani C12 any day of the week. The Diablo Vt Roadster is picante or picante spazzatura. Next up is the Lamborghini Diablo Vt. Much like, you know, the Vt Roadster, I'm gonna put it under picante spazzatura. I gotta say, man, this pack is like high risk, high rewards, because these last 2 here, they're mozzafiato. Both of those fantastic cars, but then you also have the worst of the worst. So it's like, if you open this pack, you have like, if you get a legendary, you have a 66% chance of getting a jackpot, which I guess those odds are pretty good, but you get like 33% chance of getting literally one of the worst RQ80s in the game. I mean, literally, that was in my bottom 3, and there were a lot. I mean, like, if you remember the legendary series, that was in my bottom 3. There are a lot of bad, like really bad legendary RQ80s, but the Diablo Vt takes the cake. I mean, once again, look at those stats. That's like what, high ultra rare stats, low epic stats, like 4283. Once again, I get you have MRA, I get it, but still, 4-wheel drive makes you overrated. Those stats are disgusting. So this is going to be my final review. Let me know what you think. Once again, it's my personal opinion, but I would say that this is, at the end of the day, a really mixed bag of a pack. You know, you have a decent chance of getting some really good cars. Anything from Kosi and above, I would say I would be happy with getting if I open the pack. But anything Cattivo and below, I wouldn't be happy getting. I guess it's a pretty interesting scenario, because for all these epics and this one legendary, I guess I would kind of be happy getting it just for this challenge, because I need it, you know, just so I can compete. But like I said, I'm judging these cars in a general sense, outside of the challenge. And outside of the challenge, they suck. You know, a lot of the Italian epics suck, and that's why at the end of the day, in my entire garage, I only have 6 Italian epics, because most of them are picante spazzatura. But anyway, that's gonna be my verdict. Should you open the pack? Honestly, out of the 2 packs, the 60 to 80s and the 90s Italian, I would say go for the 60 to 80s. That's the better pack. But the 90s one isn't too bad either. Like I said, it's a bit of a mixed bag, right? You have some very high highs, but you also have some very low lows. But if you want to minimize depression, I would go for the 60 to 80s over the 90s. Am I gonna open this? No, I'm not. I'm just gonna wait for the update. I'm just gonna wait for the update. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, and I hope you found this video helpful. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.